my two turtles, Tyler and Bonnie?
No.
I've got two turtles that I've been trying to breed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going too well. It was going well. At one time I thought they were falling in love.
Mm.
But now it just seems they're falling apart.
Mm.
I don't know what to do. It's a turtle eclipse of the heart.
Don't laugh, Erin. Don't encourage him. Oh, my
That was a
life.
good one. I liked how long it was.
It was a really long joke with a really naff punchline, can I just say?
Thanks.
That's okay.
That's kind of par for the course.
It is. Yeah. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're back.
We are indeed back.
The Constant Geekery podcast, and we shall call this Season 4, Episode 1, because that's what it is.
It is indeed.
And coming up in the show today, we're going to be talking about Apple's event that's just happened, the Wonderlust Event, and the new iPhones, new Apple Watches. We're going to be asking what the new A17 Pro chip means for M3. And also there's some good news finally for UK buyers. So all of that coming up. First of all, it's nice to be back, Pete. It's been a long time.
It has. I've forgotten what you look like.
That must have been good for you.
It was a blessing, and now it's all traumatised back. But never mind, you've got the same problem on the other side of the
I
chair.
have to look at you, and also I have to look at Erin, who's right opposite me. Erin's here, everybody.
I'm here. I'm going to improve this podcast by like 100%.
Are you going to improve it by talking into your microphone, though? Or are you going to just...
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is like here okay?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Yeah.
All expense has indeed been spared because we have one microphone between you and Ben.
It's
so
great. Yeah, I love it.
good. And Ben's here, everybody. So you look at that. Seamless. Just turn the mic around. Hello, Ben.
Salutations.
Excellent. Ben's my son. What most people probably don't realise is that Ben does most of the editing on the Constant Geekery channel and has to put up with me fluffing my lines and doing terrible jokes and things like that.
He must have the patience of a saint, that's all I'm saying.
He does. He does a grand job. Well done, Ben. Not even 16 yet. So,
Are you not?
No, what a legend.
Wow.
Good. That's enough of that. How are you, Erin?
My fingers hurt.
Wait.
I've got bruised fingers because I did like a blood test. And you have to like stab your fingers, and now they're bruised. Like you have to like milk like your fingers of blood.
Sorry,
And they
just...
hurt.
just
Can we zoom in on the camera?
No. Hang on.
Hang on.
Just stop there a minute. You have to do what to your fingers?
You have to milk them. That's what it says on the little.
What does that
on the
look
little
like?
card. You have to like rub your hand like this to make all the blood go in this little tube. It's really gross. It was
Are you
proper grim.
sure you were reading the right instructions for the right thing?
Absolutely
You hadn't
not.
just bought a dairy farm or something?
Did you get this off of eBay? Or was it an
No.
official medical thing?
NHS medical, and it said milk your fingers, and I did that. So I'm
They-
basically a doctor now.
They probably got it off eBay.
They probably did. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for sharing, Erin.
Anytime.
And liking the outfit today.
Thank you. It's my joutfit.
Outfit. Well, what the viewers won't be able to see is that you're in full denim today.
Double denim.
Double denim.
The perfect outfit combination.
And under the denim, I can't help but notice that you're wearing a net curtain.
Just let me enjoy an outfit for once. There's no need for it. My mum said that I looked like a pirate, which was really... which is a confidence boost I needed.
Are you,
Thanks, Mum.
you able to do a pirate accent for us?
Arg, new Apple stuff.
Wow. It was like I was transported back in time onto some pirate ship somewhere. It's just so authentic.
It was quite a seamless segue, though, into new Apple stuff.
New Apple stuff, yeah.
Or kind of new Apple stuff.
What I will say is that before we get too far into the Apple stuff, or indeed into it at all, the podcast, and we will put chapters in the description for those of you who don't want to listen to us waffle, although that is sort of the point of a podcast, I think. So,
Probably.
and we do some waffling.
Or we do.
And I've forgotten even what I was going to say.
You were going to say something about the podcast and chapters.
Yeah, so we stopped doing the podcast because we were finding it impossible to do it on a weekly basis. So it's taken us a long time to get some energy back to do it. It won't be on a weekly basis. I think we got to say that. Partly because I'm not here for the next 3 or 4 weeks anyway. So Erin, celebrate. Yeah, You had a mad busy period with our web business, didn't you,
Mhm.
Pete? So you weren't available to do stuff. And then we made the decision to refit the studio. So hopefully you like what you're seeing. It's not finished yet. And we certainly haven't finished playing around with the lighting. And there's a panel behind Ben there that's not finished yet. And it's very heavy. So just be careful it doesn't fall over onto your head, Erin.
I mean, it would make this a lot more fun, wouldn't it? It'd be like a cool little.
There'd be some kind of content restriction on though, and we wouldn't want anything to happen to you.
We wouldn't.
That sounds like lies.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
Anyway, how did you get out of your prison cell?
I've got like a paper clip,
Hmm.
and I also bribed the guard, so that was quite good.
Okay. Right.
We
well,
paid for a guard.
not very much.
Clearly.
Not enough.
So anyway, here we have an Apple event. How excited were you before the Apple event, Pete?
Do you want me to do it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yes, please.
I was probably a 5 or a 6.
Okay, and then as the event started, sort of 5 minutes into the event,
I don't want to come across as negative, but maybe a 5 or a 6.
okay, and then maybe half an hour into the event,
Probably a 5 or a 6.
okay, and when they were really talking up the environmental stuff,
Oh, well, that was a highlight. So probably a 5 or a 6.
good.
It was a very vanilla event, is what I'm getting at.
It was a little bit. There's not a massive leap forward, is there, in anything that they were talking about?
No, I mean, Apple have always been about the marketing, haven't they? They've always been good with their marketing, but that felt like a very long, drawn-out event for not a great deal of actual product news.
Yeah, I saw somebody on Twitter said that all of that could have been done by a press release.
Yeah.
Which I sort of agree with.
Mm.
Yeah.
But that's not the way they do things anymore.
No. So let's talk about it. It starts off rather predictably, and I think I did predict that it would be the Apple Watch Save My Life segment to get started.
Yeah. Which we joke about, but if you were one of the people, it's one of those things, isn't it? Some of these features on the Apple Watch are a bit like insurance. You hope you never need it. It's not a particularly exciting thing, but if you do need it, you're very grateful you've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a few examples of those who had where the Apple Watch had detected high heart rate.
Yeah.
So that prompted them to seek medical help and uncovered other issues. So that was nice. And a couple of guys who used the SOS satellite thing, which
Yeah.
I understand is now available in the UK.
It is.
So do
Definitely.
you have that now on your Apple Watch Ultra version 1?
I've not looked into it because I've not really been hanging off a mountain.
There aren't that many mountains in England to hang off, in fairness.
No, and I'm not normally a hanger-offer of things.
There aren't many bears either.
No, but if I ever got cornered by one in my bedroom,
Then you could maybe get help.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's one of those features that we do tend to mock it a little bit, but actually it's a really good thing if you're in a situation where you need it, and we're going to talk about how they've extended that in a bit, I guess. Some other features.
So my Apple Watch gave me a heart rate warning the other day
Did it?
of a high heart rate.
Really?
Yeah, do you know where it did it?
Were you exercising?
I was not. I was traveling, and it was on Friday.
Oh, okay.
So we had a little company outing, didn't we, Pete?
We did.
So we took our staff up to London. Did you enjoy your day in London, Erin?
I had a wonderful time. It was so English.
And we did a fair amount of walking, I think it's fair to say.
I'm a little piece of me is left in London.
It was good fun. My Apple Watch told me I walked 10 miles in London, and I definitely felt that the next day. But that's not the point of the Apple Watch story. It was on the bus on the way home. So we'd chartered or hired a bus, and the driver starts yawning partway on the journey home, and the frequency of the yawning is increasing, and his speed is becoming a bit more erratic, and his steering not... You know how, like, when you've got a road with 2 lanes?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very liberal about being in both of them at the same time.
I was making good use of the road, was he?
He was using all of the road. And I'm like, I guess my heart rate was obviously high because I was under stress. I'm watching him like a hawk at the front of the bus. In the end, I told him that he had to pull over.
Did he?
Well, he attempted to, but then he sort of crashed the bus into a curb, and which woke everyone up on the bus.
I don't even know why I'm asking if he did it, because I was on the same bus, so I know he did. But I was asleep, and that did wake me up.
Yeah, it's like a lay-by, and there's a curb to sort of split the lay-by from the road. And we were on a long straight road, and he just didn't see it at all and just drove straight over it, 70 miles an hour or whatever it was.
Well, maybe if your eyes are closed, you wouldn't see it.
No. It's ridiculous. Anyway, we did get him to pull over and got him outside where he had a cigarette, and then he was super vigilant for the next 40 miles.
That's good. That's good. But it is interesting, going back to the point that your watch noticed an increase in your heart rate.
Mm.
So it works.
Yeah.
Obviously, that wasn't for a health reason.
No. Well,
a self-preservation reason.
Could have been for a health reason if he'd have crashed and killed us all. So.
Or could it have been a false flag? Could you actually have a health reason that you now think was just panicked coach driving when actually, you've got a problem?
I didn't think about that.
Ooh.
So if I drop dead at some point, then you'll know it wasn't the bus.
Well, it might not be. You might drop dead for other reasons.
Excellent. So, well, that's some pretty good insights for the viewers and listeners. Let's move on to Mac, because Mr. Cook made out like he was going to talk Mac for a while.
We got excited about that, didn't we? We thought, is there going to be some kind of Mac announcement?
And all he did was said, we've launched our fastest Macs, and talked up the 15-inch MacBook Air.
Which is apparently now the most popular laptop in the lineup, which is probably fair.
Well, they are very good, I have to say. I've done a review of one on the channel because I've got one for my wife. It's just the entry-level model, and I have to say, what a fantastic laptop.
Yeah, you're pleased with it. She's pleased with it.
Yeah, I shouldn't use it that much, in fairness, but I played with it for a bit, and it's nice. Nice screen. Nice, good size. You like a slightly larger laptop.
I do.
You'd like it.
I've got a 14-inch MacBook Pro at the moment. I find it a tad on the small side. It's fine, but...
I will say, actually, I like a smaller laptop, but sometimes I'd just like to have two apps side by side, and it's just not quite large enough on the 14-inch, whereas the 15-inch is.
Yeah, so absolutely. I can imagine that.
If they made a 15-inch MacBook Pro, I'd probably get that one.
Like they did in the past.
Yeah, but
whereas
they don't.
Now got the massive one, or the little one.
Yeah. They did just highlight they'd completed the Apple Silicon transition, which we already knew about anyway. And then they were talking about Vision Pro and hyping that up and saying that they're still on target to deliver early in 2024.
Yeah, and of course, with WWDC, where that was announced, they were obviously briefing developers on stuff that they could then build using Vision Pro. And they've reported back that they're excited, or Tim's reported back that he's excited with some of the things that they're being shown. So I am interested to see what will be developed, because it's a bit like when the iPhone was released. There were suddenly all these things that developers could do using the iPhone ecosystem. And Vision Pro is another thing like the watch, where you've got different applications, different sensors. So I'm very intrigued to see what they do with it beyond the obvious.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know that we're going to buy one, though. They're quite expensive, aren't they, for what is a fairly singularly focused device?
Yeah, I can't see the benefit, but then you never know. I mean,
you got to try it, haven't you? That's the thing.
Well, if an app comes along that allows you to sort of video edit, I mean, imagine if you've got a timeline. If you can go into DaVinci or Final Cut Pro in the Vision Pro, and then you can look at a timeline going all the way over like that. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's necessary, but yeah, that'd be interesting.
It would be. It is necessary.
I think it'd be fantastic for cinema, for watching movies, if the battery lasted a bit longer. But unless you're watching quite a short movie, it's not going to cut it. Because I think it's under 2 hours battery life. How does that sound, Erin?
Not ideal, because I have the Oculus Quest one, and the battery life on that was pretty decent. And I used to be able to watch movies on that as well. And the price point of Apple one is just wild compared to that.
So how do you get on with VR?
I love VR. I think it's brilliant. Absolutely love it.
It doesn't make you want to puke?
No, I was all good with it. You get I think I got like slightly motion sickness like the very first time I used it, but then I was like, nah, this is fine. So
Because of course on the channel we reviewed some glasses that project a monitor in front of you, and I actually found that made me a bit queasy at times as well. So I'm not very good with it. Ben, you like to play a bit of VR.
I do.
Would you like to try the Apple Vision Pro? Do you see?
I don't really see a point in it, I'll be honest. I don't think I'd have application for it because I have a VR headset myself as well, and I think it does enough.
And with it likely going to be costing best part of £3,000, you might have to save up for a little while.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with any of those things, particularly the price point. But one of the things Apple has always been very good at is taking a product that's already in the market, or a type of product that's already in the market,
And claiming they invented it. No, sorry, carry on, Pete.
No, they do that, but they then take it to a point where it becomes part of day-to-day use. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the Vision Pro is that next device, but you think about the iPad. In fact, let's start with the iPhone. There were touch screens before that. The Nokia N95 was the one I was looking at before the iPhone came out. Do you remember that? And then the iPhone came out, and that was really the basis for every phone we have now, which is something we're going to talk about a bit later. Same with the iPad. Others had tried to do a tablet, and it hadn't worked. Even the Apple Watch has been something that is now much more commonly accepted. I'm not saying that there weren't good ones before, but Apple are very good at seeing how people use a product and then just developing the sort of the full answer to that product.
Yeah, I think they are, and it's easy to. We like to poke a bit of fun at Apple. I mean, we use Apple products. We give them a lot of our money, so it's nice. It's nice to have a balanced view of them. And I can remember when the iPad was launched, and it got mercilessly mocked because of the name. You know, everyone was saying it sounded like a feminine hygiene product, and we did mock it. But when iPad 2 came out, you know, I was there at the moment of launch to go and buy one. So it was very quick to go from a product that was kind of like no one's ever going, who's going to want a big iPhone, kind of, to or a big iPod or whatever, you know, to this product that everybody had to have. So Apple has done that stuff. Of course, we're a long way down the road now, and the innovation has kind of happened, and now we're more into iteration rather than innovation, whatever Apple would like us to believe. But let's talk Apple Watch if we can.
Yeah.
So meet the new Apple Watch.
Same as the old Apple Watch.
Pretty much. Well, it looks the same.
It does. It's got a new colour, hasn't it, Erin?
it has pink.
Do you like the pink, the shade?
I wish it was like a hot pink. I've always Tim never gives me what I want, you know. But I'll take a pastel pink for now. But hot pink next time, please, Tim.
You take a what?
Like a hot pink.
No, but you said something. A pastel pink. Did you
Yeah, it's a pastel pink. How do you say that? Pastel?
Pastel.
Well, it's an
Pastel.
EL.
Oh,
Pastel.
Pastel. A pastel pink. Pastel. It's fine, isn't it?
Passed out pink, I think is. So, but yeah, so it looks pretty much the same.
It does.
It's got a new chip in it, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, which they're calling the S9. It has Mo GPU for animations that are slightly better.
Do you find on your Apple Watch that the animations are a bit laggy?
I got to be honest, I'm not really a big Apple Watch user. I've been wearing mine of late because I'm interested in monitoring heart rate. But this works fine. This is a Series 6. The only downside to it is I managed to crack the non-replaceable plastic front. I think they are sapphire now, aren't they? So they're a bit stronger. Yeah. Yeah. But so I can't take it in the water anymore. Can't go swimming with it and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that kind of defeats the object a little bit, doesn't it? Because you swim quite a lot, don't you?
I do, yeah. So then we've got also in the chip is, I don't know if it had machine learning cores before, but it has 4 machine learning cores, a neural engine. And this is to power Siri, which is now working on device for the most common things, but not everything.
Yeah.
So what this means is if you don't have a Wi-Fi or a cellular connection, then you'll actually be able to use Siri. So that's progress, I guess.
One might say that.
And
No one's ever done that before. On-device voice assistant.
didn't just going back to Windows Phone, wasn't Cortana on
Oh,
device?
would you just stop with the Windows Phone? It's not. It's dead. It's not coming back.
It was so good though, because you could actually dictate a text message whilst you were driving through an area with no phone coverage, and it would still work. Whereas the iPhone never did.
Do you know what annoys me about Siri is that you can dictate a message, but if it can't get a connection when you're driving, it won't say, "I'll hold that until I've got a signal." So you might have sent or composed a very long message, and it says, "I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the connection." What would be really, really nice, this would be really innovative, Apple, is to just say, "Do you want me to send that when I have a connection again?" Yes, please, Siri, do that. I mean, how hard must that be?
So does it just forget it? So
I've activated Siri on my Apple iPad. So yeah, it just forgets it, and you have to re-dictate it.
Well, they are saying that dictation is improved by 25%.
How do you measure that?
Well, I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, Apple were very fast and loose with the percentages and improvements, aren't they? So, but improved dictation. Some health data are also accessible via Siri as well.
Yeah, so you can say things like how long did I sleep last night, or things like that.
As opposed to sort of thinking about, what time did I go to bed and get to sleep and when did I wake up? I'm so old school.
You are. How did we know how we slept before Apple?
It's a mystery. 18 hours of battery life. I feel like that's 6 hours short of where it ought to be.
At least.
Mm.
I mean, I don't have that problem because I got the Ultra.
Oh, well, good for you. That's good. Have you found that your left bicep is much bigger now after carrying the Ultra?
It's absolutely fine.
Okay.
It's actually quite a reassuring weight.
Something they have added to the watch is their second generation ultra wideband chip.
Yeah.
So you can now use your Apple Watch to ping your phone and find it with a high degree of accuracy.
Yes, which is great if you've lost your phone. Although I did think, Tim did mention we never leave home without our phone, and if we do, we go back and get it.
He did say that.
So I'm not sure how often that will be used, but maybe some people are more likely to. Yes.
I'm going to jump in here and say I lose my phone in my bedroom like 24/7 because I just put it down somewhere. And then I left it in my fridge the other day. So, yeah.
Sorry. No,
what?
You did what with your phone?
I was making a sandwich and I was watching stuff on my phone as I was making my sandwich because, I don't have a good attention span. And then I put the butter back in the fridge, shut it, and then spent 5 minutes trying to find my phone and then opened the fridge and it was just on top of the butter. And I've done that before as well. That's not even a first time in the fridge kind of thing.
Just out of interest, did someone call you and you just picked up the butter and put it to your ear?
Hello? Yeah, no.
I got to just say, what kind of masochist puts butter in the fridge?
What? Are you just eating warm butter?
Well, then you can spread it.
Yeah.
As opposed to dragging a piece of freezing cold butter across your toast and ripping the bread apart.
But it's spreadable lacto-free butter.
No,
It's
so
always
it's not butter.
It's not butter.
It's spread.
It is butter.
Which is the worst.
Butter.
It's the worst word, isn't it? Would you like some spread on your bread? It's no, I wouldn't. Give me some butter.
Terrible. I was going to tell you a story then about a restaurant that I went to with a butter issue, but I'm not going to because that's not about Apple. Let's get back to the point. And Erin, seriously, why do we employ you?
Because I bring joy and happiness to the company.
You actually just admitted to us, though, that you put your phone in the fridge.
Yeah, well, you guys are such good friends to me. You won't use that in any way. So,
yeah. And we won't put it on the internet where potentially tens of thousands of people will find out about your fridge habits.
Your milky fingers. And your freezing cold phone.
I suppose you probably get better performance when you put it in the fridge.
You might do, actually. Yeah, that's true. It's true. Processors work better when they're cold.
It might reset the battery. Erin's battery life is probably amazing.
It's really... sorry.
Well, you heard it here first. Top tip. Keep your phone in the fridge.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's just cover off the other bits. There's something about it syncing up with HomePod. I don't use HomePod, so I can't comment on that. Why are you pointing at me? The pinch gesture. That's always been there.
No, it hasn't.
It has. It's part of the accessibility settings of your watch. You can clench and unclench. So if you switch on accessibility,
Please don't use the word clench again on the podcast.
it depends what you're clenching, Pete. I'm talking about hands here. So
well,
it would
that's what I thought you
probably
were doing.
also detect if you were milking your fingers.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Can you imagine a Microsoft desk? It looks like you're milking your fingers. Do you want help with that?
It'll be like the hand washing thing, where it'll say, "You haven't milked them enough. Keep going." Okay. Finger tap gesture, though. So it's something that's been part of the accessibility settings, but they are formalizing it now. I think actually the stuff in the accessibility wasn't specifically a double tap, and it wasn't hugely reliable. So they've obviously improved it now.
Yeah, they did say that they're using a combination of biometric signals to determine and learn, and this is where the machine learning calls come in again, to be able to detect the tap gesture that your own wrist and hand generates. So it should get better over time, which is quite clever.
Yeah, is it something you think you would use?
I do think it's one of those things that we will mock, and I'm not planning to get one of these new watches. But when the time comes for a new one, I suspect it will be the sort of thing like I often I press one of the buttons on my phone to snooze my alarm in the morning, and just being able to do that, I can see that becoming second nature. And to hang up a phone call, maybe I could see it becoming something you do for certain actions. Not probably everything that you can program it for.
You know, you're just going to see loads of people now walking down the street doing the tap.
I reckon there's a whole business to be had there in making sock puppets for those people.
Okay.
Do you remember, what was the name of the sock puppet on Red Dwarf?
I don't remember.
Mr. Flibble? Was it Mr. Flibble?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
What I do know, Pete, is that, you know, we traditionally do most of our business ventures together, but that's one I won't be joining you on. I'll let you do your own sock puppets.
I've got another business idea that we'll talk about in a minute as well.
Okay, I really look forward to that. The screen is brighter, so it can go all the way up to 2,000 nits, which I believe is twice the number of nits that you've got in the S8. But it can
also go down, can't it? To one
nit. So if you're in a very dark space, like almost like a dungeon, Erin, or like a locked room, then you would still be able to tell the time if you had an Apple Watch. Do you have an Apple Watch?
I don't have an Apple
Oh,
Watch.
that's a shame. So then we had to sit through a whole bunch of environmental cringe.
Can I just ask before we move on? Do you get an itchy head when someone starts talking about nits?
No.
Okay, it's just me.
Yeah. Did you just really do the nits joke again?
Have I already done that joke in the past?
You probably have. You'll have forgotten, obviously, being as elderly as you are.
Yeah.
Something I was going to say earlier and I forgot to is that
Because you're elderly.
probably is that some people were feeding back on our old podcast, and there was a small percentage, Erin, a small percentage of people who didn't like the way that we, you know, give you abuse on the podcast.
Yeah, it's because you're really, really mean.
No, it's because they are labouring under the illusion that you're really, you know, a nice person, really innocent, that you don't, you know.
I would say she is a nice person. I will go on air as saying that, but she is brutal.
I will say you guys can't keep giving nit jokes because both of you are losing your hair.
There it
is. See, honestly, folks, if any of you
That's
on the
harsh.
old podcast thought that we were dishing out to Erin, believe me, she can give it back, and we're trying to encourage her to do that on the podcast.
On the podcast, Erin.
On my podcast?
You don't have to do it like all the time.
Yeah,
That's-
you know.
I'm quite sensitive about my hair. I can't believe that
Good.
you would say
I'm
such a thing.
glad.
It's so mean and cruel.
Which one?
I'm writing this down in my notes as points to bring up more often.
You're giving away all your weak spots. Don't do
Sorry.
that.
I wouldn't have said it if I really meant it.
Environmental stuff.
Yeah, so we sort of had to sit through quite a bit of this, and I always find myself taking a bit of a negative view of it, because at the end of the day, we're talking about a company that solders SSDs into MacBooks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to cover this on the channel, and a lot of viewers don't really get what I'm trying to say with this. But so I think it's worth just talking about for a moment. I think it's a terrible thing to do to solder in an SSD, because if your SSD fails for any reason, your whole machine is toast. And they can fail. Typically in an Apple machine, in the older Intel machines, if it failed, it was because the power chip that supplied power to the SSD went wrong and supplied too much voltage to the SSD and fried it. The SSDs themselves are completely reliable. This is the annoying thing. If nothing goes wrong like that, and bear in mind only a tiny percentage have faults, but for the majority of machines, it will outlast all of the rest of the components of the machine. But that doesn't matter, because if you're the one who's got a failed one,
that's gutting.
To lose your whole machine, and if you're out of warranty, the usual stupidity applies, where basically Apple is going to throw away a perfectly good machine because of this design choice. Now, how can you claim to be environmentally friendly at the same time as doing that and being so obstructive with repairs of laptops?
I get where you're coming from, and I've got an interesting thought on right to repair that we'll come to a bit later. But I think you've kind of argued yourself out of this by saying it's such a small percentage. Yes, it is gutting if you're one of the ones that is affected by it. It is really annoying, but you've got to look at the bigger picture and the numbers, haven't you?
I suppose if you're talking about Apple's overall environmental credentials, then yes. But I still think it's dumb and it's unnecessary. And Apple themselves have proved it that it's unnecessary, because if you buy the Mac Studio, the NAND chip is a replaceable device.
Yeah, but at the same time, if they am I right in saying that if they didn't solder the SSD on, then you're going to make the chassis of the MacBooks thicker?
I don't believe that personally. I think they could do it.
Right. Okay. So why are you think it's a cynical thing to stop you being able to repair it yourself?
Well, I think Apple would put it under the guise of security. And there's another issue that goes on here, which is happening on a wide scale. And that is when corporates get rid of their stock of computers. And because they can't just take the hard drives out, which is what they would used to do, you'd have the IT department would remove the hard drive or the SSD, whatever, and then they would hire some company to do the disposals. And what they would then do is refurb it, put a new drive in and sell it on.
Yeah.
Apple devices, you can't do that on, which means somebody would have to sit there and zero out all of the drives. And they can't be bothered. So they hand them off to these companies. And when these companies get them, they can't actually do anything, because invariably they're locked with the Apple ID. And so they can't even get access to the machine. You can't boot it from an external device. They can't replace the SSD. So they're left with this situation where they can't actually do anything with it. And they can't dismantle it for parts and sell the parts on the second-hand market, because Apple will actively go after anybody who's doing that.
Interesting.
It has to be turned into powder. It has to be pulverized and recycled through Apple's approved
Recycling chain.
Yeah. And I just think, what a shocking waste of these computers can go on for years and years and years, and yet corporations, what are they going to do? 3 to 5 years, they're going to be turfing these things out, and sometimes even less than that. And you've got perfectly good machines going into the scrap.
And you have some good points there, and maybe that is something that Apple do have in the pipeline, is the recognition of that. Maybe they will just say, well, in the modern age, you do turn them back into powder, but that does seem very wasteful. I think the environmental stuff, I've seen some posts on LinkedIn about it this morning, some lauding it, that little Mother Nature skit that everyone took part in, others mocking it a little bit. And I thought it was a bit cringy, the skit, but I thought about it after we watched it, and they're clearly trying to do something. And this is a step in the right direction. It's one product lineup, just the Apple Watch, isn't it? But they're clearly trying. I think they went on a bit too much about it. But and the other thing is, we don't know how big this is in the scheme of things, because they're saying, oh, we've done this many billions somethings. I can't even remember what it was that they said they'd done billions, not millions of. But how much is that compared to the rest of what Apple's doing as such a large corporation around the planet?
Yeah, so they actually put this segment in between Apple Watch Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2. And of course, we realised towards the end of the sequence is that they're only talking about Apple Watch. However, I think it is really cool that if you buy an Apple Watch Series 9 with a sport loop specifically, then that is a carbon neutral product.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fantastic
laudable.
achievement.
That is laudable.
Yeah. So, it's great. I just, the right to repair and everything else, we just wish that Apple was a bit more open like that. Now, they did surprisingly make a comment about the iPhone and its replaceable glass back on the Pro model, and how that can be easily replaced, keeping the iPhone going for longer. I think that's the first time I've really heard Apple talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah, they also mentioned something else. I know we're going to sort of segue into the iPhone in a minute, but obviously one of the things we're going to talk about is the connectivity, which we'll go into more detail in a minute. But I did see someone this morning, I can't even remember what outlet it was on, saying, well, that's a load of lightning cables that are going to be put in landfill. And it's like, well, first of all, no, it's not, because not everyone's going to go out and replace them straight away. They're not going to throw them away because there'll always be some device hanging around the house with it in. And secondly, have you ever known a lightning cable to last more than 12 months? They all die.
Well, mine do, but I take meticulous care of my stuff. So, just saying.
Anyway, so here's my next business idea, recyclemycable.com.
Yeah, okay.
So, send it to someone who can then process it down, because there are valuable things in the cable, the metals and all that kind of stuff. Or, you resell on the cable to someone who needs it.
Yeah. And if Apple were supporting longer lifespans of products, then those things go on for a long time. And I think they should do that, because Apple makes most of its money surely from selling apps and services, skimming off on every time you use Apple Pay, they're taking a chunk.
Yeah.
So is it not in their interest to have a thriving used market for their products? Because all of those customers, whilst they haven't paid Apple for the device, they will be paying Apple for all the other stuff.
That's a really good point. And they did make, as well as holding its value, I don't know if you noticed, there was a lot of push for trade-in. Trade-in on, if you trade in this phone, you'll get quite a lot back towards your new phone. Well, what's going to happen to those phones? They're going to be sold as refurbished.
I would expect they'll be kept as replacements.
Or sold as refurbished.
It's possible they'll be sold as refurbished.
Or ground down and recycled.
All that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm conscious of time. Let's move on. Apple Watch Ultra 2. I don't think there's much to say about this. It looks like Apple
It's
Watch.
Identical from a chassis point of view.
Identical. Slightly brighter screen, 3,000 nits.
I have to say, if you're thinking about getting one, and you've got, well, you'll know if you've already got an Ultra Watch, I've never thought the screen is not bright enough under any conditions I've used it in yet.
So I expect most people won't notice that. I thought it's quite nice to get the Bluetooth accessories for cycling, so you can put a cadence sensor on your bike and connect it up to your Watch Ultra. That's quite cool.
I wasn't paying attention at that point, but yes.
Okay. So Apple Watch Ultra 2 is a thing, and I think, again, there is one particular strap that you can buy that with, and you get, again, it's a carbon neutral product.
Yes.
So well done, Apple. Good. Let's talk about iPhone.
Oh, was there any new iPhones?
I will quote directly. They said about the iPhone 15, an all-new design.
Well, it has got slightly more contoured edges.
And it's got that nice textured infused glass back, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought that was great, because it's going to be less fingerprints, and probably you're going to have a better grip on it if you don't put a case on it.
Yeah, but of course everyone's going to put a case on it. So, because they're so expensive. We'll come to pricing at the end, and there, like I said, there is some good news for UK buyers. Dynamic Island comes to iPhone 15, and it seems like Apple's going all in on that, so we're stuck with Dynamic Island for a bit.
Yeah, I've never not used it because I got my iPhone 13 at the moment, so I don't know. It seems to be a bit of a Marmite thing. Some people love it, some people hate it. I wonder if it's a bit like the notch on the MacBook. After a while, you just don't notice.
Yeah, I guess. The display, so Super Retina XDR OLED, slightly brighter than it used to be. I think that's about as far as we need to talk about that. There's two sizes, 6.1 inch, 6.7 inch in the Plus, And the colours. Which colour would you have, Erin?
I'd probably go for the blue or the pink one. I'm kind of leaning towards blue.
Interesting. What about you, Ben? If you were going to go for one of these iPhones, what colour would you?
Black.
Black. Excellent. Good choice. They are all a bit pastel-y.
Pastel.
But, some people are going to really love that. And changing the colours each year is a classic marketing trick, isn't it? To keep people
Definitely
changing.
And don't forget the increase in battery life.
Was there one?
Yeah. So the standard 15 has 20 hours with video feedback, or should I say up to 20 hours with video playback.
Right.
The 15 plus 26 hours, and that's 3 more hours over the iPhone 12.
The iPhone 12.
That's what it says on the website.
Excellent. That's quite a few phones ago.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, at least 3.
Interesting. I wonder why that is. I'm sure you'll let us know in the comments. Incidentally, if you fancy leaving a comment on the podcast, in future episodes of the podcast, we will feature some of those comments. And so if you've got questions and stuff, we will feature those as a section and do answers, give you a shout out on the podcast. Something else this phone gets is, and some people have basically been saying, yeah, this is last year's Pro.
Which is not far from the truth.
It's got the same chip. It's the A16 Bionic, and it's now got the 48 megapixel sensor, which is a quad pixel sensor.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually getting 12 megapixel images out of it.
Yep.
But with those extra pixels, that's just
Pictures.
I'm inventing new words. Pixels. With those extra pixels, you can better evaluate light. So in low light conditions, you get a better quality image, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, it seems to me that the main focus of a smartphone these days is the camera.
Yeah, I was looking back on photos that I've taken on the many iPhones I've had since my first one, which I think was a 5, possibly a 4. And iPhones are always taking good picture, and actually there's many other smartphones out there that take really good pictures as well. But you can see a noticeable improvement over time in terms of, color richness, depth, just the overall quality of the image. And also, I don't know if you've noticed now, we just take it for granted because what we're seeing is iterations now, small increments. So you have to go back quite a few years to see a difference. But it's not just the quality of the images, it's the speed with which you can get your camera out now and take a really good, what we call a snap. You're not thinking, the first phones were quite, relatively speaking, slow, and you still had to really think about getting the image right. Whereas now, you take a picture and you think, oh, it's blurred. You give it a second for the ML computational photography to go through, and bang, actually it's not. Very, very clever. So none of us in the mass market are professional photographers, but it is giving us better quality memories and experiences in our day-to-day life. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? These devices are sort of the hub for your life these days. So a good camera is good. Something that they've done that I think is quite useful is you've got 2 times zoom. All they're doing is cropping the sensor to get that, but you still get a 12 megapixel image. But it is pixel per pixel. It's a proper full resolution 12 megapixel image.
Yeah,
which is
clever.
great. Yeah, and they're also now capturing a depth map with each photo. So what this means is that afterwards, if you've detected, it'll detect if there's someone in the shot and capture a depth map, so that afterwards you can turn it into a portrait photo if you want to. It's this AI artificial blurring of the background. I think you can do post focus as well.
Yeah, I didn't pick up, and I haven't checked. Maybe this is something for you to just check now, Ben. I thought that was a Pro only feature.
The post focus. They did definitely mention it for the other one.
Did they though?
They did.
Did they?
So you got the A16 Bionic. The other thing that's gone into the phone is a 2nd generation ultra wideband chip, just like in the watch. So you now with Find Me, your stalking performance is much improved. That's tongue in cheek, folks. I use the app to the whole family, we're on the Find My app. It's kind of useful to know where each other is. But I do call the app Stalk My Wife. So I can see where she is at any time.
It is really useful though, isn't it? If you're sort of like getting ready to go out and you're waiting for someone to come home from a certain location to get a little notification when they leave, if you're cooking dinner or something like that. That's great.
Yeah, good. Did you find any information on that, Ben, on the post-focus stuff?
I do believe it's on all iPhone 15s.
Told you.
Excellent. That's what you said, isn't it?
That's exactly what I said. I think
That's
if you rewind it, that's what you'll find I said.
I think it was. So we've just been talking about how your telephone can take great photos, but what always seems to be missing from these events is how's the quality of your phone calls? And
Yes.
and just as I was thinking it this time, they started talking about it. So now they're using machine learning to do voice isolation on phone calls. Sounds very impressive.
It did.
Very useful, I would say.
Yeah, because how many times do you have that when you're in a noisy environment and someone can't hear you? The only thing I thought about it was a really good demonstration, but it doesn't work. Of course, you can still hear that environment, so it can be difficult to hear your own thoughts if you're in a noisy environment. But obviously, there are times when you need to make that call, so that's a great feature.
Very cool. The other thing I've got noted down before the obvious big change is emergency SOS via satellite is in the phone, and it says 2 years free. It's not available all over the world, but it is available in the UK now.
Yep.
So since we're in the UK, that's kind
That's
of
good.
useful.
And the roadside assistance feature as well, using the same technology, but only available in the States, as we understand at the moment. And you get it if you've got a AAA membership.
That's it. So this is via satellite, roadside assistance via satellite.
Yeah.
So that's all good. Now, of course, the big change that everyone knew was coming because the EU demanded it is that they move to USB-C. Now, we've been thinking about this new section for the podcast.
Yes.
We don't have a jingle yet, Erin.
I'd like Pete to just hum one, if that's all right.
Pete, could you
just hum me a little theme
hum
song?
you a jingle? We're going to call this segment Erin Explains.
Yeah, and we will get a jingle, but I am happy to hum one for now.
Joyce.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Erin explains.
Hang on a minute.
Do do what?
Isn't that the Great Escape thing?
I don't think it is. No.
Oh, right.
Do 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 do.
We're going to get a copyright strike.
Do do
Absolutely.
do do.
We have got this cool new mixer thing with all sorts of effects, so we could do something like...
Erin explains.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Did that actually say Erin explains?
Well, that's what I said.
Oh, did you say it? And
I said it whilst putting a filter on.
Oh, can I have a go?
Yeah, let me choose a filter that's appropriate for
You're gonna
you,
mock
Pete.
me, aren't you?
Hang on.
Try.
Erin explains.
It's not working. It's only working on me. Oh, for goodness sake.
Backfired.
Well,
that
can we
sucks,
please
doesn't it?
have you for the rest of the podcast speaking like one of the chipmunks?
Look, let's get on with it. Erin explains.
Hello, I'm Erin. You may have noticed me earlier in the podcast, and I'm going to explain USB-C.
Have you got notes on your phone?
Yeah, I've got notes on my phone because
This is the level of confidence you should have, dear viewers and listeners.
it's going to be amazing. Okay,
Erin, what
Number
does
one.
USB stand for?
why would you say that? You
go
know
on.
that I don't know that. So
Have break it down. What do you think the U stands for? And please don't say umbrella.
universal.
Very good.
There you go. She knows her stuff. Let's carry on.
Yeah,
Erin.
right. USB-C has more power. So the normal lightning cable, which is on most iPhones at the moment, can carry a 2.4A current, whereas a USB-C can carry a 3A current up to a 5A current. So that's pretty neat.
Okay, so what does the A stand for?
Why are you asking me questions you know that I don't know?
Isn't your dad an electrician? Have you learned nothing?
No.
Okay.
You're meant to be explaining things.
Well, I'm explaining. It just means that it's more powerful. I was getting onto it. You know,
The only downside to this is, and I realise, Erin, that you're about to come onto this because you've done all your research, is that the iPhone still charges at the same rate despite having USB-C. They haven't taken advantage of that extra power.
So,
As far as I'm aware, it's still going to take as long to charge.
right. So my entire segment is just destroyed, Ben, isn't
Well,
it? Well,
no,
no,
I'm not responsible
I think
for
you've
that.
just ruined my little Erin exit. Right, here we go. Okay. That means the USB-C charger on the phone can charge your phone quicker. But apparently that's wrong now. So
Have we got a
can we just have a little
I don't think we have.
Oh.
No, I feel like we've got.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, okay. I'm just gonna.
This is quality content.
It should also technically speed up data transfers, but
Yeah,
come to that in a
true.
second. Let me
That's
say
true.
stuff, and then you can like criticize after.
No, what you said is absolutely correct. It should,
Okay, it should.
And it does.
in certain circumstances.
We'll
With
go
an
back to that.
asterisk. at
We'll
the
go
end
back
of
to that. Yeah, so also most iPhones at the moment have Lightning ports. So you can't share your chargers with people who have like Android phones. But because it's the new like national standard, everybody has to change to USB-C. So that means you can plug your phone into your computer and also share your chargers with more people. So that's cool. You won't have like 97 different chargers for everything, and that will help the environment. This has been Erin Explains.
Erin explains.
So, did you just say this was? Thanks for that.
Sorry, I'm
This is
here
a
all
national.
episode.
This is a national standard, is it? Good. Good.
Erin,
Okay.
actually, well done. You did a
Thanks.
grand job of
Thanks
that.
very much,
And,
yeah.
I'm sure you'll get loads of love in the comments for your highly technical explanation. You're not wrong though. Those should be the benefits of USB-C. Apple is not taking advantage of them, and the problem with the speed of data transfer is that you need to have a USB controller that supports it. However, the iPhone 15 is using last year's A16 Bionic chip, and it doesn't have that faster controller. So that means you're going to get 480 megabits per second, or to put it another way, USB 2.0 speeds on the iPhone 15.
Play that thing again.
What thing? Oh, the trombone. So it is one of those look what you could have won moments. However, let's now talk about the iPhone 15 Pro.
Yes. Can I talk about the titanium?
Please.
So, I was quite excited about this because titanium's been a material of mine that I'm very it's not mine. A material I've been very interested in because my dad had a titanium watch. He was a jeweler, and he was very excited about it. Probably in the 80s, this was. Because it's self-healing to a degree. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did not.
Yeah, so it actually oxidizes very quickly if it gets lightly scratched. So light scratches, and if you combine that particularly with the brush finish of the new iPhone, should make it look smarter for longer if you're not using case. And they're using grade 5 titanium for this, which is used in spacecraft. So if you want to fly your iPhone Pro to the moon, you can't because you asphyxiate, but the materials in it to a degree would be worth it.
Thanks for that.
That's all right.
That
It's
was-
lighter.
That was almost worthy of an Erin Explains. But yeah, go on.
Well, what I thought was interesting is they are bonding it to an aluminium chassis using something called solid state diffusion. And I had a look at that, and it actually is bonding materials at an atomic level. So as I understand it, not being a material scientist, is that using some very specialized techniques and pressure, you basically push the molecules of two different materials together so that they essentially, the molecules intermerge as opposed to just kind of being stuck or welded together. So what you then get is very high quality joints with no irregularities, no porosity. So it's good, makes a good seal, which is good. There was a mention, I don't know if you spotted it, about better thermal performance, which I know previous iPhones, some have complained about when it's warm and you're trying to charge it, particularly wireless charging, not MagSafe, but standard wireless charging can overheat very quickly. Will that make it better? That sounds good. However, does that affect user serviceability? The fact that it's basically molecularly bonded together.
Well, you'll have to buy the whole thing, won't you? But you can change the glass back, so there's that.
There is good. Yeah, that is good.
And you can probably change the screen. I mean, you'll need Apple to do it. Obviously, not any kind of independent repair shop because it won't recognise the screen as an official Apple part, even if it is.
Yeah.
Unless Apple will do it.
No.
But there we go. Yeah, I think titanium. It looks jolly nice. I have the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is a big, heavy phone, and it would be nice to have a lighter phone. It is a little bit lighter.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we're not talking dramatically. It's like about 20 grams, isn't it?
Yeah, and supposedly slightly smaller. And they were mentioning seemed like they were talking about smaller bezels, but I couldn't see it.
I could. Tiny bit thinner, but we are talking fractions of a millimetre, I think.
Mhm.
What did you think of the colours, Erin?
Yeah, I really like the dark. I think it's like a bluish kind of tint to it. I really like that one. I think that looks very smart.
So they're doing these like PVD coats, aren't they? So you can have it in natural finish or black, white, or blue. I suspect it's the case back that will be the main source of the colour that you see.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Contoured edges as well.
Oh, contoured. Yeah, it does look slightly different, but it still looks like an iPhone. Right. They're using the same. Feels like we've been on the same design for a long time now.
I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording, weren't we? About how, particularly iPhones, aren't you used to get excited about getting a new phone.
Well, if you go back in ye old days, so like before you were born, Erin, probably. It's just tragic, isn't it, that we're that old? But you used to get excited about getting a new phone because different handset manufacturer, different design. Will it be a flip phone? Will you have a fold-out keyboard? Or all of these different things. And nowadays, they're all pretty much the same, with the exception of course, now the new generations of folding phones. What do you think about a folding phone?
I love a folding phone. I think they're really cool and very cute. So, yeah.
I got a folding phone.
What is that? What is that?
That is the Samsung Z Flip or Z Flip 5. So you can have a play with that later.
Once you've unflipped it, though, it looks like an iPhone.
Once it is open like that, it is basically an iPhone, but with a higher level of friction on the front and, of course, a crease in the middle.
Ooh, no, I don't like that. I don't like it.
Well, you wouldn't, because you're an iPhone fanboy. But you've also got this additional screen on the front, and it's interesting, and it opens up interesting ideas for doing photography and video and other things with your phone and watching content and stuff. I haven't had much time to play with it yet, but I was going to do some videos on the channel, but it's going to have to wait because I'm away for a few weeks now.
Okay.
So, but at some point I will talk about the Z Flip 5 and particularly how difficult it is to change these days from Android to Apple or Apple to Android if you're locked into an ecosystem.
Yeah. And you never had that before, did you? But then you never had any ecosystem. I mean, one of the phones I was most excited about going back to those days when you had all different shapes and sizes. I had an orange Sony Ericsson that kind of, I can't remember, it rotated in some way. It was quite a, and it had like sort of orange matte and silver finish. It was a lovely looking phone, and I think it was one of the first phones I had with a colour screen. I can't even remember what it was now. Well, maybe see if we can get a picture to put in the B-roll.
Maybe. Ben's up against it because we got to get this edited this afternoon and up so that we can go away. Let's get back to the iPhone 15 Pro. Apple has reinvented buttons.
No, they haven't.
Well, it made it sound like they had, but they. So we thought this was coming to all of the iPhones, but actually it's just the Pro series. So your mute switch is now just a soft button with haptic feedback, and you can choose a number of different actions to run when you press that button. By default, it will still be the mute sound off. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got an action button on the Apple Watch Ultra, and you can program that. I have mine programmed to start a workout, and I do use it, so I can see that being useful.
Okay, let's get to what is for me the main event and the thing that I've been most excited about for the new iPhone, and that is to get a sneaky peek at the new chip.
The A17 Pro.
A17 Pro, and this is being built or fabricated on TSMC's 3nm process. And everybody's very excited about the Mac chips, the M3, because that's going to be a jump to 3nm. And there's this general feeling that it's going to be a fairly big leap forward. So what you need to know is that the M chips and the A chips share core designs. So the CPU cores the design is shared between the two chips. An A chip is not an M chip. They have different features, but they use the same building blocks, if you like. So we can look at the A chip to a certain extent to give us some idea of what we might get with M3.
Which, based on the speed improvements that were quoted, is a little bit disappointing. Or shall we say underwhelming?
Well, what they're saying is that the performance cores, of which there are two, there's 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores in this A17 Pro. The 2 performance cores are 10% faster for single core performance.
So
Now,
what's your take on that?
it doesn't feel like enough. Now, I think I know the answer to this. I think because I read a white paper on TSMC's 3nm process, and I haven't been able to find it again to quote it directly for the podcast. So if anybody has sight of this thing and knows where to find it, please leave a comment below. I will double check, because I'm going to do a video on M3 and I'll do a bit more research. But as I understand it, you can, when you're designing your processor, you can choose between 3 different approaches with the 3nm process. So you've got a more efficient approach, so more battery life, less performance.
Yep.
And you've got a more performant approach, so more performance, less battery life, less efficiency, and something in the middle.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, you can also deploy these for different segments of a system on chip. So you could have the CPUs using one thing and the GPUs using something else. If this is the case, if I'm correct about this, then that means that Apple can focus on, say, efficiency rather than performance, and that's probably what you would choose to do with an iPhone, which doesn't need the performance but does need the battery life.
Yeah.
Now, what is true is that all 3 of these approaches are both more efficient and more performant than the previous TSMC process.
Okay.
So whichever they choose, there will be an improvement.
But depending on which one they choose, it may not be as dramatic as one might think.
Yeah. So my take on that is that that's the possibility. So it probably is the case for the first time that we can't actually use the A chip as some kind of foreteller of what the performance leap will be for the M chips.
Interesting. And you're saying that's, in layman's terms, that's to do with the density of the transistors.
I believe so. I've got to be honest, it's months since I read this thing, and it's only popped into my head since watching the event last night.
So what we're saying is less dense is not as good as more dense.
It's not always true, is it, Erin?
Why did you look at? There was no need for it. No need.
I couldn't help myself.
So glad you're on my wavelength there. Yeah. So that will be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see other people's views on that in the comments as well, because we're obviously excited to see what the M3 brings us.
Yeah. So I'm still quietly confident that M3 will be more of a leap forward than this. But again, just think Apple might make choices on how the chip is fabricated for different products or chip types.
Which is a big part of the whole move to Apple Silicon, is to have that choice and that control.
Yeah. Let's move it on. We got 16 machine learning cores. They're 2 times faster because there's more on-device machine learning going on.
Mm-hmm.
We've got ProRes and AV1 decoders, so there's some media decoding advantages, and a USB controller.
Yes.
That supports the full 10 gigabits per second. So if you do have
a
a Pro...
Whoa. Yes, it does. However,
go on.
You have to have the right cable.
Yes.
It's optional.
Well, they're not going to provide a nice cable in the box, are they?
Why not?
Because they don't anymore.
It's a Pro.
Well, I suspect if they give you any cable at all, it'll probably just be a charging cable. I mean, this is something that folks don't always realise, is that a USB-C cable might just be for charging. So when you try and use it for data, you get very low speeds. So USB 2 speeds rather than full. Yeah, so you do need to buy the right cables. That's a good point, Pete.
Thank you.
Let's get to the GPU.
Yeah.
Now, Apple said this is a new Apple-designed shader architecture.
Yes.
Now, that to me says that they're moving away from the previous architecture.
Yes.
Which was PowerVR.
Indeed it was.
Created by Imagination Technologies here in the UK.
Which they have to pay a license fee for, I believe.
Yes, and that's all been through the courts, because way back when Apple basically did their own version of it, and then the courts decided they'd have to pay a royalty. Originally, the iPhones did have PowerVR chips in.
Yes.
And Apple's tile-based deferred rendering that's something that PowerVR does. So that's where it's all come from. But what I'm getting from this is that Apple are redesigning part of it. I wonder whether that's to so they don't have to pay the royalties.
Yeah. But on the plus side, Dave, did you notice that this new GPU is 20% faster than the last one?
Yes, I did.
That's amazing.
Mm. So how many GPU cores did the last chip have?
Well, 5.
And how many GPU cores has the new chip got?
Well, 20% more. It's got 6.
Anyone spot a problem here? Don't try and do the maths, Erin.
I'm
Don't
not-
try and do the maths.
I wasn't even attempting it.
So it would basically seem that the performance is exactly what it was before. And what they've done to get the 20% performance gain is add an extra core.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether Apple is using the shift to TSMC's 3 nanometer process to mask the fact that their new architecture is perhaps slightly less performant than the old architecture
At the moment, anyway.
at the moment. And I'm sure they'll optimize it as they go. But
Yeah.
if you were going to make that leap, now's the time to do it, where you can cover those deficiencies.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a good spot, that, I thought. They were talking about ray tracing, weren't they? We gave a ray tracing demo.
Yeah, so I think lots of folks have known this is coming because they tried to do it previously and didn't get it into M2 or the previous A chip in time. So, yeah, this is all part of the new thing. So now you've got hardware accelerated ray tracing. So if you're playing games, that's great.
Yeah, and the demo, they had it side by side. From a performance point of view, did look good. You know, that was much smoother. I must admit, I'm not a big gamer, so the ray tracing effects, while I get them, I get what they're doing. I was like, yeah, that's for me. That's not enough justification to get one of these.
I think I've recently stuck an RTX 4090 in my workstation at home, and I do a bit of gaming on it, and I have tried the ray tracing out, and I have to say it does add realism.
Does it?
At a subtle level, it's just more realistic.
Interesting.
Does it improve the game? You know, your actual gameplay experience? I don't think it does personally, but it's a nice thing to have more realistic graphics. We're going to take that, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I suppose if it's something you can have, I wouldn't go out looking for it. I think playability is much more important than just purely how a game looks.
I noticed they're also doing the upscaling thing that NVIDIA and AMD do as well, using machine learning to up-res something. That's a mixed bag. Sometimes it works well, sometimes not so much, but that's available now to developers. What that will mean is that there's more console-type games that could come to iPhone.
Yay. Yeah, they were talking about some games running natively now on iPhone, weren't they?
Yeah, that possibly couldn't have run on it before. Which does mean that, it's got way more power than, say, a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So if you're into mobile gaming and you want to, if you can attach a handheld controller and you don't mind having the cutout in the middle of your gaming screen or on the edge of your gaming screen, then
it's not a cutout; it's a dynamic island.
I don't know how gaming aligns with the Pro moniker.
No.
Personally, but
I mean, can we move into cameras?
Let's,
because that's where arguably the Pro moniker earns its keep more. Although, did you spot the picture of the studio photographer taking the picture of the guy wearing the black balloon?
Yes.
Black balloon trousers. They were hilarious trousers.
Yeah, and look, who's going to do that? No one is
wear black balloon trousers.
Well, no one's going.
Erin,
you
probably.
would, wouldn't you?
Depends.
If they were corduroy, you'd be well up for it.
Yeah, then absolutely.
Do we think that any professional fashion photographers with a full studio setup are going to shoot on iPhone?
It does seem like if you've got a full studio setup, it would be a bit remiss. I mean, we've got a pretty good studio here. If we were then to film on an iPhone, it would seem to defeat the object of everything else.
Yeah, I think you're going to use a professional camera, but nonetheless, it's good.
It is good. But again, I mean, we know a professional photographer, and he said you can get some amazing shots on an iPhone, but you couldn't potentially go out for a commercial shoot with an iPhone. No one would take you seriously.
No, they wouldn't. And that applies to video as well.
Yeah.
And there used to be actually a whole range of cameras made by, I think it might have been Panasonic, specifically for wedding videographers who didn't need anything but this huge shoulder-mounted camera. I'm going back a few years because people expected you to turn up with something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
So it just looked the part.
Just look the part.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we've got the equivalent of 7 camera lenses, what they kept saying. Basically, they're doing cropping with various different things. The sensor is larger. It's better. You can now take 48 megapixel photos in HEIF format as well as Pro RAW, which is great.
Like a bit of Heath. It's good.
Um,
And the pictures did look good. I have to say that.
They do, but what you notice about all of those pictures is that they're very well lit, and photography is about capturing light. So the idea that you can look at those photos and go, oh, my happy snaps are going to suddenly be on the next level. They're not.
Well, yeah, they're shot by pros with a pro setup and pro lighting or pro reflectors and an understanding of how to light a shot. Just like, do you remember that cinematic video they showed a couple of iPhones ago?
Yeah.
The space scene, and it looked amazing. It was all shot on iPhone, but it was actually done, with proper professional everything else.
That's it.
So,
Yeah.
but again, looking back on my old photos compared to what you're seeing here, you are going to get better quality. So that's a good thing.
It is good. And I like the fact they're using LiDAR to help with night shots, to get better night shots. The Pro Max gets a 5 times zoom and the Pro gets a 3 times zoom. And I think the 3 times zoom is probably the better one to have because of all of the in between. There's a big gap then on the Pro Max between the largest focal length and all the other focal lengths.
Yeah.
That's just speaking personally. I'd probably rather have the Pro and have the 3 times lens. But I'm sure there are going to be plenty of people out there, and it's bragging rights as well, isn't it, for this?
Mine's longer.
Yeah.
Mine's got a better zoom.
That's it.
Yeah. Very clever how they use the prism to extend the focal length on one of the cameras. I just thought that was such a neat thing. And this is what I took away from the whole event is all these iterations are just building on lots of very clever things that we shouldn't take away from the engineers and the specialists who have delivered these. It's really clever stuff.
It is. So finally then on the camera, there's a macro feature that looked nice, but again, it's a pro photo, so without checking it ourselves, who knows? And you can now record to an external USB-C drive, which is great, and in up to 4K 60 ProRes. So
And log.
with log color, yeah. So that would be great if you're a videographer and you just want a B cam. You don't need to take a B cam. You just take your iPhone.
And we did. That is something we did a video a few years ago on the channel, didn't we? Using the cinematic features.
That was a terrible video,
including her.
Yeah.
Why was it a terrible video?
It just bombed because we didn't have enough time to do it justice.
Oh well, go back and look at it. It's great.
It's not.
It's got Erin in it, unfortunately.
It's amazing.
But one of the things we said is the speed with which you're getting files off. Whereas in this case, using an external hard drive or the optional USB 3, plus also the iCloud storage now being available up to 12 terabytes of iCloud storage, if you want to sync it that way, is pretty good. There was also another camera feature.
Yeah.
Spatial video.
Oh, yeah, it's not coming yet, though, is it? It's later.
Yeah, but what a great, basically a tie-in to Apple Vision Pro. You rotate your camera and you can then do a stereoscopic, basically 3D video. And that's very easy to discount. But what a great tie-in to the Apple Vision Pro. And yeah, I think that's amazing.
Good. Well, I'm obviously extremely excited about that. What I am conscious of is that timing-wise, we're over an hour on this episode.
Yeah.
And we haven't done prices yet.
I'm sick of the sight of you.
And the sound of you. So let's just quickly do prices, because last year we here in the UK got basically done over by Apple, and we still are being done over when it comes to the Mac lineup. But they've taken the opportunity to reduce prices in the UK. So this year's iPhones are actually cheaper than last year's iPhones. So the whole range has reduced in price.
Interesting.
So let's just take, in view of the time, we'll just keep it simple. Now, they do still sell. So you've got the SE, which hasn't changed, has dropped in price in the UK. I think the cheapest one now, Ben, is it 429? You can No, don't worry. Haven't got that up on screen.
No.
Okay. So we've got, I think it's 429 for the cheapest one, which is like 64 gigs of storage. That's your entry point to the iPhone range. They're still selling the 13 and the 14, and then we get to the 15. So last year, your standard 14 cost £849, and now it costs, the 15 now costs.
At entry level, 799.
So it's a £50 saving there over there.
What are savings?
Yeah, well, it's worth having, isn't it? And then the 14 Plus was £949. So the 15 Plus now is
899.
£899, so another £50 saving. So that's pretty good. I'm just going to move your microphone down.
Okay.
That's it. Good. And then let's move on to the Pro. So last year, a 14 Pro would have cost you £1,099. This year, a 15 Pro will cost you
999.
£999, £100. Now, the Pro Max, 14 Pro Max last year cost $1,199. Now, 15 Pro Max is going to cost you
1199.
same price, but there is a difference.
Yes. Starts at 256.
There we go.
But
2023, and we've got at least one phone in the lineup starting with 256 gigs of storage.
yeah, I do have to wonder if the 128 starting on the Pro is just to get it under that £1,000 price point.
It possibly is, although it's the same in the US where the price is the same, isn't it? As prices haven't changed in the US either.
No.
So, but here in the UK, the exchange rate has improved against the dollar since they put the prices up. So it's fair that we get the reduction. And I think this is really good news because if Apple uses the new product lines as an opportunity to reduce the price, then we'll see that in Macs as well and iPads and everything else.
Well, you would hope so. And then I can say, by Grabthar's hammer, what are savings?
Okay, thanks for that.
Those who know.
Those who know. Let's just do the watch as well. Watch Series 8 would have cost you before the event £479. A Watch Series 9 will cost what, Ben?
Starting level 399.
Wow, 80 quid off.
Yeah.
That's quite a saving. And Watch 8, no, it's not Watch 8 Ultras, it's just Watch Ultra. That was £849, and now the Ultra 2 is... Ben's looking it up. Erin's tired and bored.
There we go, 799.
$799. So we're saving 50 quid on the Ultra 2.
So what does that tell you, apart from putting the exchange rate aside?
Well, just that there's not much different to last year.
No.
No.
And I suspect Apple have looked at that, and as well as the exchange rate, they've probably looked at it and gone, well, we can't justify a massive price hike or indeed a hike at all. So they want to keep their sales buoyant, and this is a way of doing it.
I think you're probably right. Yeah, and I think actually, I mean, we were all thinking the titanium finish would certainly add to the cost.
Yeah.
And it hasn't done.
Which is surprising, although it used surgical grade steel before, didn't it? Which is fairly pricey anyway, I believe.
So an interesting event with some interesting sort of things that we can derive for the future of the Mac. Some good news for UK buyers that the prices are finally coming down. We've been suffering massive inflation here, so everybody's struggling with cost of living. And don't forget there's that knock-on effect as well, because that means that you can buy, go and buy an iPhone 13, for example. I don't know what those cost. Do you have that up on the screen at all, Ben? No.
About $650.
Yeah, I mean, all of the prices cascade downwards, so everything becomes a bit cheaper. Good news for everybody. A little bit more performance and some iterations in the phones. That's great. Should you rush out to upgrade to iPhone 15 if you're already on 14?
No.
To be honest, we're due for new phones, and I'm still rocking my iPhone 12 Pro Max, and I'm struggling to find motivation to change it.
I'm exactly the same. And to be honest with you, I think that's another win for the environment, because if people aren't going out and replacing things just because they have to have the newest because it's got some killer feature on it, well, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perhaps a bit more moderation would be good for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. Good. Well, guys, I hope, and girls, sorry, I hope you all enjoyed the podcast episode of first outing in season 4. What you will have noticed, of course, is that this is now back on the main channel. So we're not using the separate channel anymore because YouTube now has a separate feature for podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason that we put it on the other channel previously is because YouTube. Did I say Apple
You
earlier?
did.
Oh,
No,
for goodness sake.
you said YouTube earlier, but you said
Oh.
Apple that time.
Well, what used to happen is you'd put up a podcast, and of course, not many people are going to watch a long podcast compared to a short tech episode. So YouTube would just kill your channel every time you put a podcast up. So hopefully that won't happen anymore.
I was going to ask, actually, it would be great to know, like you said at the beginning, we're going to be doing less episodes, but we'd love to know from you guys what you'd like to see from us, if you'd like to see us at all. I mean, you might look at this and go, oh, no way, Jose, in which case, just stick with him. But if you would like to see more, what would you like to see?
Absolutely, yeah. We're open to ideas. We make the show for you guys. So, anything you want, let us know in the comments section. And I think we should probably wrap it up there. Thank you, Ben and Erin, for being here. It literally wouldn't be the same without you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thanks, Pete. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with anyone apart from you.
Thanks.
But unfortunately, we're stuck with each other. So
Sometimes I talk to myself because it's the only way I can be sure of intelligent conversation.
And on that note, we'll say cheerio, folks.
Cheerio.
I think my bits are really, really good.
Erin, you
Actually.
sucked.
I did amazingly. Also, Erin Explains is now going to be like the most popular part of that podcast.
For
Yeah.
who?
For me
It's not
and
going
my
to go
mum.
viral.
She'll love it.
Yeah,
I
your
didn't
mum.
see anybody
your
doing
mum will love
the
it.
Apple event gestures throughout our podcast. We should have done some of those.
Or
Do you
weird,
think
like,
they all went on a horse riding expedition the day before? Because they were all standing like they were a bit saddle store.